Part 1, The Fragile Peace. Captain Lyra Voss stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, her eyes fixed on the swirling purple and blue hues of the gas giant Celsius. The massive planet cast an eerie glow across her face as she reflected on the 5 years of uneasy peace between humanity and the Kian Empire. Her hand instinctively touched the neural implant scar behind her right ear, a permanent reminder of the Battle of Proxima Centauri, where she had lost her brother and nearly her own life. "Captain Voss," the station's AI announced, "Ambassador Krellin requests your presence in the diplomatic quarter." Lyra straightened her uniform and made her way to the Kian embassy. The diplomatic quarter was maintained at higher temperatures and gravity to accommodate the Kian's physiology, a small compromise in the name of peace. Ambassador Krellin, a towering figure with iridescent scales and 4 arms, greeted her with a nod. His eyes, though alien, held a warmth that set him apart from his more militaristic counterparts. "Captain Voss," Krellin's translator gave his words a melodic tone, "thank you for coming. Please, be seated." They discussed routine matters, joint patrol schedules, resource-sharing agreements, cultural exchange programs. It was mundane work, but Lyra understood its importance. Boring meant no one was dying. As their meeting concluded, Krellin dismissed his aides and leaned closer. "Captain, there's something troubling I must share," he whispered. "There are factions among my people who believe this peace makes us weak." Lyra felt her muscles tense. "We have similar elements among humans," she admitted. "The Purity Coalition gains support daily," Krellin continued, his secondary arms twitching nervously. "They see humans as a corruption of the natural order." "Are they a serious threat?" Lyra asked. "Not yet," Krellin replied. "But I wanted you to know. I lost my clutch sister in the war. I have no wish to see more bloodshed." Later that night, Lyra couldn't sleep. She paced her quarters, replaying Krellin's warning. The peace was working, trade had resumed, both species were rebuilding, and there was even talk of joint scientific missions to the galactic core. But something felt off. Her communication terminal chimed. "Voss here," she answered. Admiral Jarek's stern face appeared on the screen. "Secure transmission from Earth Command. How's our scaled friend?" "Krellin seems genuinely committed to peace," Lyra replied. "But he mentioned a faction called the Purity Coalition." Jarek nodded. "Keep an eye on it." Meanwhile, Project Aegis moves to Phase 3 next month. The weapon tests exceeded expectations. Lyra frowned. "Admiral, if the Kians discover..." "We're ensuring survival," Jarek interrupted. "The truce is fine, Voss, but I'm not betting humanity's future on alien promises." After the call ended, Lyra returned to the observation deck. Celsius's storms swirled below, a perpetual tempest contained within bands of colorful gases. She couldn't shake the feeling that another storm was brewing, one that wouldn't be confined to a planetary atmosphere. Peace was fragile, and Lyra knew that better than most. But for now, it held. For now, there was hope. She didn't see the encrypted transmission that flashed between a Kian transport and a hidden base in the outer asteroid belt. She didn't see the weapons being assembled by claws that believed peace was the true enemy. Not yet. Part 4, The Fall of the Coalition. 3 months after the victory at Helios Primus, humanity pushed deep into Kian territory. The Nemesis fleet, now expanded to over 200 ships, seemed unstoppable. Captain Lyra Voss sat in the war room on Earth, studying reports of another successful mission. "Captain Voss," General Marcus Reed said as he entered the room. "Congratulations on the victory at Proxima Centauri." Lyra nodded. "The Kians are retreating on all fronts. Their weapons can't touch our ships. Which is why I need you for a special mission," Reed said, activating a holographic display showing a distant star system. "We've decoded information from the Kian commander you captured. The Purity Coalition has their central command hidden on their home world. The display zoomed in to show a massive underground structure. From there, they're planning a desperate final strike. What kind of strike? Lyra asked. A planet-killer weapon, Reed replied, his face grim. If they activate it, billions of humans across multiple systems would die instantly. Lyra studied the schematics. They're desperate. Yes, Reed said. And desperate enemies are the most dangerous. We need a small team to infiltrate the Kian home world and destroy this weapon before they can use it. Lyra knew what Reed was asking. When do we leave? 5 days later, Lyra's stealth ship approached the Kian home world. With her were 12 of her best soldiers, including Lieutenant Rian. The massive planet loomed ahead, covered in sprawling cities unlike anything on Earth. Their defenses are concentrated around the capital, Rian reported. The weapon is located beneath the central dome. Lyra checked her quantum phase rifle. We'll use the chaos of their defensive preparations as cover. With the silencer device, they won't know we're there until it's too late. The stealth ship slipped past the orbital defenses and landed in a remote area. Lyra's team moved quickly through the alien city, their advanced suits allowing them to blend with the shadows. Strange to see their world, Rian whispered as they passed tall buildings with curves and angles that hurt human eyes. Never thought I'd stand on Kian soil. They reached the central dome without detection. The silencer device masked their approach, causing nearby Kian security systems to fail. Inside, they found less resistance than expected. They've committed most of their forces to the front lines, Lyra realized. They never expected we'd reach their home world so quickly. Deep beneath the central dome, they found the planet-killer weapon, a massive device pulsing with dark energy. Around it, Kian scientists worked frantically. Set the charges, Lyra ordered. We have 10 minutes before the silencer fails. As her team planted explosives around the weapon, a door slid open. A group of Kians entered, not soldiers, but civilians, led by an elderly Kian with ornate markings. Do not fire, Lyra commanded her team, who had raised their weapons. The elderly Kian stepped forward. You must be Captain Voss. Krellin spoke highly of you. Lyra kept her rifle raised. Who are you? I am Sovereign Trax, rightful leader of the Kian Confederacy, the Kian replied, his translator giving his voice a dignified tone. The Purity Coalition staged a coup. They do not speak for all Kians. Lyra studied him carefully. You have a strange way of showing it. Many of us have been fighting from within, Trax said. We have sabotaged their efforts, delayed their plans, but we could not stop this. He gestured to the planet-killer weapon. Why should I believe you? Lyra asked. Because I helped Krellin send you the intelligence before he was murdered, Trax replied. Because I want peace, as he did. Lyra hesitated, then slowly lowered her weapon. We're destroying this device. I know, Trax said. That is why I brought these. He gestured to his companions, who carried data crystals. Complete plans of our defensive systems, codes to disable our remaining weapons, and this. He handed Lyra a small crystal. Proof that the Purity Coalition acted against the will of our people. You're surrendering? Lyra asked, incredulous. I am choosing survival over extinction, Trax said simply. The Coalition would see us all die rather than admit defeat. I would see us live to rebuild, to try peace again, but with wiser eyes. Rian finished setting the charges. Captain, 2 minutes. Lyra made her decision. Come with us. Bring your evidence to Earth. Help us end this war. As they escaped the facility, the charges detonated. The planet-killer weapon collapsed in on itself, a fitting end for a device designed to destroy worlds. 1 month later, Lyra stood in the Great Hall of the United Earth Council as Sovereign Trax signed the new peace treaty. Not a truce this time, but a true alliance. The Purity Coalition leaders had been captured or eliminated. The war was over. Do you think it will last this time? Admiral Yarrick asked quietly as they watched the ceremony. Lyra touched the neural implant scar behind her ear. It has a better chance. We understand each other now. They know what we're capable of when pushed. We know they're not all our enemies. And we'll be ready if it doesn't hold. Yarrick nodded. Humanity had learned its lesson. Peace was worth pursuing, worth fighting for, but never again would they be caught unprepared. The sleeping giant had awakened, and the galaxy would not soon forget. Part 2, The Nemesis Rises. The alarm blared at 0300 hours, shattering the silence of Captain Lyra Voss's quarters. Emergency lights bathed the room in a harsh red glow as she bolted upright, her military training kicking in before her mind could fully process the situation. Captain Voss, report to the command center immediately, the station's AI announced, its voice calm but urgent. Lyra grabbed her uniform and sprinted through the corridors of Harmony Station. The command center was already a hive of activity when she arrived. Admiral Jarrek's grim face filled the main screen, his expression darker than she had ever seen. We've lost contact with Ganymede Research Station, Yarrick said without preamble. All 127 scientists and staff went silent 8 hours ago. Lyra's stomach dropped. Equipment failure? We sent a drone, Yarrick replied. I'm forwarding the footage now. The screen shifted to show the interior of the research station. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. Bodies lay scattered across the floor, blood staining the walls. Equipment was smashed, and the carnage was total. Those are Kian weapon signatures, Lyra said quietly, her voice tight. The molecular disruptor patterns are unmistakable. 2 colony ships were also destroyed in deep space, Yarrick continued. All evidence points to Kian attacks. The Secretary-General addresses the United Earth Council in 1 hour. Lyra shook her head. This doesn't make sense. I spoke with Krellin yesterday. The peace was holding. Tell that to the families of the dead, Yarrick snapped. Report back to Earth immediately. We need you here. As the screen went dark, Lyra's mind raced. This had to be the work of the Purity Coalition. Krellin wouldn't have sanctioned this. She needed to speak with him. She hurried to the Kian embassy, only to find it locked down. Armed Kian guards blocked the entrance, their molecular disruptors raised. I need to speak with Ambassador Krellin, Lyra demanded. The ambassador is unavailable, one of the guards replied, his translator crackling. All human personnel must evacuate Kian territory immediately. This is a joint station, Lyra argued. Let me speak to Krellin. The guard raised his weapon. Depart now. Lyra backed away, her mind working furiously. She had a secure communication channel to Krellin for emergencies. She would try that from her quarters. Throughout the station, screens showed the devastation on Ganymede. People watched in horror as footage of the destroyed colony ships followed. Human news networks were already calling it the second betrayal. In her quarters, Lyra activated her secure communicator. Ambassador Krellin, please respond. This is Captain Voss. After several tense minutes, the screen flickered to life. Krellin looked agitated, all 4 of his arms moving nervously. Captain, I did not authorize these attacks, Krellin said hurriedly. The Purity Coalition has seized control of several military vessels. They act against the government's wishes. I need proof, Krellin, Lyra said. Humans are dead. Many humans. I am sending you encrypted communications we intercepted, Krellin replied. The coalition planned this for months. They. A loud crash sounded from Krellin's end. They're here. They know I'm contacting you, Krellin said, fear evident in his voice. Ambassador, who's there? What's happening? Krellin looked directly into the camera. Captain Voss, if our species are to survive, you must understand this is not the will of all Kians. The Coalition believes eliminating humans is necessary for the feed cut off with the sound of molecular disruptors firing. Lyra downloaded the data Krellin had sent. It contained communications between Purity Coalition leaders, planning the attacks to look like official Kian military operations. Before she could analyze further, her communicator chimed again. All personnel, emergency evacuation ordered. Repeat, all personnel must evacuate immediately. This is not a drill. Lyra grabbed the data drive and ran for the docking bay. Outside the viewport, she saw Kian warships appearing from jump points, far more than should have been in the area. As her shuttle pulled away from Harmony Station, Lyra watched as the first shots were fired. The truce wasn't just broken, it was obliterated. Lyra's shuttle docked at the Mars Defense Station, the red planet looming large in the viewport. Home to over 15 million colonists, Mars was humanity's first line of defense. After escaping Harmony Station, Lyra had transmitted Krellin's data to Earth Command, hoping it would make a difference. Now, as she waited for orders, she monitored the rapidly deteriorating situation. Captain Voss, incoming transmission from Admiral Yarek, announced the station's communications officer. Jarek's face appeared on the screen, lines of exhaustion etched deeper than Lyra had ever seen. Voss, have you seen the news? Yarek asked. No, Admiral. I've been debriefing the station commander. Jarek's expression darkened. The Kian government is denying responsibility for the attacks. They claim these are actions of a splinter group. Your evidence supports that claim, but public opinion. He paused. It doesn't matter now. They've attacked New Terra colony. Lyra felt the blood drain from her face. Casualties? Initial estimates are in the millions, Yarek replied, his voice hollow. The colony's defenses were designed for meteors, not warships. Lyra's hands clenched into fists. What are our orders, sir? Return to Earth immediately, Yarek said. We need your first-hand knowledge of current Kian tactics and capabilities. The journey to Earth was the longest of Lyra's life. She watched helplessly as news reports showed the devastation on New Terra. The planet's surface was scarred with new craters where domes had once stood. Emergency vehicles swarmed the remaining habitats, and civilian ships fled in chaotic streams. When her shuttle approached Earth, Lyra was shocked by the transformation. The orbital defense platforms, dormant since the truce, were now fully activated. Military vessels formed protective screens around the planet. Earth had awakened for war. At Earth Command headquarters, Lyra was immediately ushered into a high-security briefing room. The screen showed military leaders from colonies across the solar system, all faces grim and determined. Captain Voss, General Marcus Reed, Director of Project Aegis, nodded as she entered. Before we begin, there's something you should see. The main screen switched to footage from the Kian embassy on Harmony Station. Ambassador Krellin stood surrounded by his own security team. I have transmitted proof of the Coalition's treachery to human authorities, Krellin was saying. This violence must end. One of his guards fired a molecular disruptor into Krellin's back. As the ambassador fell, the guard removed his helmet, revealing the distinctive markings of a Purity Coalition officer. The corrupt element has been eliminated, the officer announced. The Coalition now speaks for all Kians. Humanity is an evolutionary mistake that must be corrected. Lyra watched in horror as Krellin, the last voice for peace, died on the embassy floor. That broadcast went out across all Kian channels, Reed explained. The Purity Coalition has taken control of the Kian government. Lyra looked around the room. The faces that stared back at her were not the same diplomatic, cautious leaders who had signed the peace accord. These were the faces of a species that had tried peace and been rewarded with slaughter. Project Aegis is now active, Admiral Yarrick announced. All restrictions on military response have been lifted. Lyra felt something shift inside herself. The part of her that had hoped for lasting peace died as surely as Krellin had. Humanity tried peace, General Reed said, his voice steel. Now they'll learn what happens when humanity stops holding back. Part 3, The Planet Killer. Captain Lyra Voss stepped out of the shuttle onto the lunar surface, Earth hanging in the black sky like a blue jewel. It was hard to believe that just 2 weeks ago, she had been working for peace. Now, she stood on the moon, preparing for war. A man in a military uniform waited for her at the airlock. His silver hair was cut short, his face weathered but determined. "Captain Voss," he said, extending his hand. "I'm General Marcus Reed, Director of Project Aegis. Welcome to Olympus Base." They walked through corridors carved deep into the moon's regolith. Lyra had heard whispers about a secret base here, but the scale shocked her. Thousands of personnel moved with purpose through the massive facility. For 5 years, Reed explained as they walked, while diplomats talked peace, we prepared for war. Not because we wanted it, but because we knew the Kians might never accept real peace. They entered a vast chamber where workers assembled sleek black ships unlike any Lyra had seen before. "The Nemesis fleet," Reed said with pride. 50 ships with technology the Kians can't even imagine. "How is that possible?" Lyra asked. "Their tech was ahead of ours during the last war." Reed smiled thinly. "We learned from them. During the first conflict, we captured damaged Kian ships, studied them, then improved them." He led Lyra to another section where soldiers trained with strange weapons. "Quantum phase disruptors," he explained. "They bypass Kian shields completely. In the last war, their shields made them nearly invincible. Not anymore." Lyra watched a demonstration where a weapon beam passed through a standard Kian shield and destroyed the target behind it. "We need someone to lead the first strike team," Reed said, turning to face Lyra directly. "Someone who knows Kian tactics, someone they won't expect to hit them so hard." Lyra understood immediately. "You want me?" "Admiral Yarrick recommended you personally," Reed replied. "You've spent years studying them. You know how they think." In a large briefing room, Reed showed Lyra the attack plan. A holographic map displayed Kian territory, with one system highlighted. "Helios Primus," Reed said. "Home to their largest shipyard. The Purity Coalition is building their invasion fleet there. They'll expect us to defend, not attack." Lyra noted, "Their psychology favors patience. They believe humans are impulsive, emotional." "Exactly why our first strike will shock them," Reed agreed. "The Nemesis fleet can reach Helios Primus in 3 days using the new quantum drives. Your mission is to destroy their shipyard and return." Lyra studied the plans. "They'll have heavy defenses." "That's where this comes in," Reed said, handing Lyra a small device. "We call it the silencer. It creates a field that disrupts Kian communication networks for 6 hours. Their ships can't coordinate, their weapons targeting fails." Lyra looked around at the massive operation. "All this was happening while we negotiated peace." Reed's expression hardened. "Humanity tried peace with open hearts, but we prepared for war with open eyes." Later, as Lyra toured the facility, she met the soldiers who would form her strike team. Men and women with hard eyes and quiet voices, many of whom had lost family in the First War or in the recent attacks. "We're ready to hit back, Captain," said Lieutenant Rian, a tough woman with scars on her face. "Just give the word." That night, Lyra couldn't sleep. She thought of Krellin, genuinely working for peace, murdered by his own people. She thought of New Terra colony in flames, the millions dead. Tomorrow, she would board the lead ship of the Nemesis fleet. Tomorrow, humanity would reveal what it had been building in secret. Tomorrow, the Kians would learn that breaking the truce was the worst mistake they could have made. The Nemesis fleet moved silently through space, 50 black ships almost invisible against the darkness. On the command deck of the flagship Retribution, Lyra studied the tactical display. Helios Primus grew larger as they approached. 2 hours to target, Lieutenant Rian reported, her hands moving confidently over the controls. Lyra nodded. Status of the silencer device? Ready, Captain, Rian replied. For 3 days, they had traveled faster than any human ships before. The new quantum drives left no energy signature for Kian sensors to detect. They would arrive completely unexpected. Captain, we're picking up Kian communications, the communications officer said. They're discussing the attacks on human colonies. They're celebrating. Lyra felt cold anger settle in her chest. Record everything. The people back home should hear this. The Retribution slipped past the outer sensor network of Helios Primus. Through the viewports, Lyra could see the massive Kian shipyard. Dozens of warships were under construction, the invasion fleet meant to finish what they had started at New Terra. All ships in position, Rian confirmed. Lyra took a deep breath. Activate the silencer. The small device hummed to life. On the tactical display, Kian communication signals suddenly disappeared. All ships, weapons free, Lyra ordered. Execute Attack Plan Alpha. The Nemesis fleet emerged from stealth mode. Quantum phase disruptors fired as one, beams of energy passing through the shipyard shields as if they weren't there. The first explosion was massive, a nearly completed Kian dreadnought broke apart, its reactor detonating. Chain reaction spread across the shipyard. Kian defensive ships scrambled to respond, but without communications, they fired blindly into space. Their weapons can't lock onto us, Rian said, her voice tight with controlled excitement. The stealth hulls are working perfectly. The Nemesis fleet moved through the Kian defenses like ghosts. Weapons that would have destroyed human ships in the last war now passed harmlessly through advanced shielding. Captain, Kian command ship detected, the tactical officer reported. Heavy armor, but our weapons should penetrate. Lyra studied the massive vessel trying to coordinate the chaotic defense. All ships, focus fire on the command ship. The Nemesis fleet turned as one. 50 quantum beams converged on the Kian command ship. Its shields flared and died, its hull armor melted away. Secondary explosions rippled along its length before it split apart. Captain, we're being hailed, the communications officer said in surprise. It's coming from one of the smaller Kian vessels. On screen, Lyra ordered. A Kian officer appeared. Unlike most Kians, this one had gold markings on his face, a high-ranking commander. His voice translator couldn't hide his shock. Human forces? How is this possible? Our intelligence said you had no such weapons. Lyra stood tall. You should have honored the peace. We calculated a 97% chance of victory, the Kian commander said, almost to himself. Our analysts assured us your technology was inferior. Your analysts were wrong, Lyra replied coldly. Surrender your remaining forces. The Kian commander's forearms moved in a gesture Lyra recognized as deep distress. The Purity Coalition promised easy victory. They said humans were weak, divided. You are neither. Around them, the shipyard continued to burn. What should have been a long, grinding war had become a devastating defeat for the Kians in just 30 minutes. Prepare to be boarded, Lyra ordered. Your ship and crew will be taken to Earth for questioning. As Lyra's strike team secured the Kian vessel, they found data stores containing the Purity Coalition's full war plans. The hardliners had expected an easy victory based on faulty intelligence. They had never imagined what humanity had been building during the years of peace. They had never expected the sleeping giant to wake so powerful, so prepared. They had never expected humanity's wrath to be so unstoppable.